Alright everyone, Celtic back to winning ways yesterday. A 3-0 victory over St Mirren, a power cut at Celtic Park, dropped points from our wonderful rivals who never let us down, and Brendan Rodgers criticising the Celtic support, and a new face on Celtic AM. You may want to settle down for this one. Delighted to have my good friend Euan on today. Now, Euan was a big part of the coverage on 67 Hail Hail back in the day. So when Stevie, Asim, John, Enda, my neighbour's dog, virtually anyone's not available, we get Euan on. Hey. Hello, Euan. Seventh choice, Euan. How does that make you feel?
Magnificent seven. No, it in no way diminishes the order that, I mean, I'm pretty sure you asked my cat to be on here before me. I mean, if you remember correctly, he was a lot noisier than I was. So, I mean, it's in no way diminishes it. But, it's nice to be chatting about Celtic again. I'm sure the YouTube comments will be really nice. They always used to be.
No, people love you, Euan. People love you.
Well, I guess we'll find out. But it's nice to be back. It's nice to be chatting about Celtic again. So it's been a wee while.
Yeah, I only gave you that intro because I knew you could handle it. Maybe some other people, you would have to tell them they were number one, but I know what you're like. So it's amazing to have you on. Genuinely, I mean that, and good to chat about Celtic with you. You were at Celtic Park today. So was Stevie. Here's his full-time report.
Hamish, hello. It's about half an hour or so after Celtic 3, St Mirren 0. Hopefully the audience are okay with seeing me after the debate and everything caused the other night. But that's the nature of the channel, isn't it? Not everyone's going to agree on anything at Celtic, really. That is the nature of the support. And again, it was all just about moving on from it today. And we did. Really comfortable win over St Mirren, who I thought were actually very disappointing today. They made it a wee bit difficult, I'd say, in the first half hour. But then, a really fast, decisive play got the first goal. Maeda putting the ball across for Nicholas Kuhn to make it 1-0. Fantastic Engels ball in, and Austin Trusty nodded home to make it 2-0. And then the third goal, put away by Nicholas Kuhn, really, guaranteed the 3 points. But in all honesty, I think when we got that first goal, you could say the game was over. St Mirren didn't really have anything to them attacking wise. They looked to contain the first half hour or so, but really it was all about getting that first goal, and we never really looked back from it. As comfortable as it gets. The big call was before the game from the manager. I think I was very vocal, but so were many others, on the Hatate and Scales situation. He also threw on Adam Ida to start, who I thought actually was okay. Didn't really again come off for him in front of goal, but I thought he worked really hard in the second half. I wouldn't be shocked if he keeps his place for the Dundee United game. But yeah, Hatate and Scales not being in the team, Trusty coming back in, and Luke McCown and Arnie Engels being in midfield. Bernardo dropped out, and I think the support for the most part trusted the side that the manager picked. And in the end, it was a very, very routine win. As I said, St Mirren had nothing to them, and we were largely untroubled. It really is just a case of keeping this run going. I think obviously the Rangers result as well, with about 12:30 or so with a kick-off at Hibs, there was a big one too, because you felt getting into the game today around about 2 o'clock for me, there was a lot of sort of euphoria and a lot of people celebrating the fact that they dropped points again. So I think the team would have got a boost from it. The support certainly did, and that's us now 13 clear. But I was just coming back to do the video when I heard that. I guess you'll be touching more on it in your video for after the game today about Brendan Rodgers' comments regarding Kieran Tierney, Greg Taylor, and the support in general up until the first goal. So I guess, I don't know if you want to talk more on that one. I've not heard too much about it, just like sort of WhatsApp chats. So I'll go into that in more detail with you maybe this week, or I'm guessing you will. But I've just heard it sort of breaking now, so I'll try and hopefully hear that on Clyde or Sports Sound or whatever, and have more of an opinion on it. Hopefully people are alright with it. But I'm going to head up the road. Really horrible night. Main thing really today was 3 points.
And we got the 3 points. I can't help but notice Stevie's breath there, Euan. Not in the normal way for Stevie. I'm talking about actually being able to see his breath. It must be pretty chilly now at Celtic Park.
I mean, it's right. I know you're the host, so I don't know which one of us wanted to get this -13 in Glasgow patter going. I know, you've got a duty to your subscribers. I know it's the kind of joke that one of us has to make if Stevie hasn't already made it. But I mean, talking personally, I don't know if it's. I think everyone who has a seat at Celtic Park will say that their part of the stadium is the coldest, not just in the stadium, but in Glasgow. I'm pretty sure that like my area has its own ecosystem. I've never worn enough layers for it to be all right, but yeah, it was absolutely Baltic. So I mean, it's no less than you expect, but yeah. But I mean, luckily the football heated us up a bit. We didn't have to, especially that second half. There was a nice bit of movement in terms of getting up and celebrating goals. So yeah, I mean, we weren't. I can't complain. I really, really can't complain after yesterday. So yeah, although I know I was absolutely freezing, and I'm sure we'll come on to it, but the power cut didn't help. I think it's maybe just a psychological thing, but the lights going off. I don't know, that maybe felt a wee bit sort of Victorian after that. You know what I mean? Everyone was getting paraffin lamps out, and no. But yeah, Lisbon Lions up here. Up so many stairs, so many stairs. So that's been keeping me fit.
That'll heat you up on a day like that, to be fair. So that's a really good. Listen, it is probably at this point, Euan and everyone else, that I should declare that I haven't actually been able to see the game at all. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not ideal for doing a match reaction. I'll tell you a very short story. So I got up. What I do basically is for games like this, I don't try and stay up because the games are 2 a.m. kick-off here. So I went to bed after watching a certain team dropping points. Yeah, I stayed up for that. Went to bed, set my alarm for like 6:30 this morning to get up and watch the game. Put on Celtic TV and came across this statement on the Celtic TV website. I'll read it out very quickly. So it says, a power outage this afternoon in the Parkhead area of Glasgow caused disruption to normal matchday services inside Celtic Park. I'm not going to read it all, actually. I'm going to just skim through it. So basically, it affected the operation of the stadium's big screens and PA system. Stadium's emergency generator system ensured that there was still power and the game could continue after a short stoppage. Basically, due to Celtic TV's live streaming and base at Celtic Park, the live broadcast of the game was impacted upon, and it also means that their ability to record the match and post it on Celtic TV was affected. So yeah, not been able to see the game. Don't know if I'll ever get to see the game. Luckily we had Stevie on there and you as well. What was the story with the power cut? So it was start of the second half and the stadium was plunged into darkness.
Yeah, it was weird. So yeah, kind of all of a sudden the lights went off, the big screens either side of the stadium were completely off. You could see. I don't think it's just me who immediately looks at the fourth officials and referees to see what they're going to do in a given situation. But I was looking at the fourth official who was sort of looking around, going like, I don't know, which is quite funny. I think VAR would have been out of operation, so thankfully nothing happened, which would have given us weeks and weeks of speculation and. God knows what kind of conspiracy theories that could have caused. I mean, really, who could be bothered with that? But yeah, it was just a bit weird. And then obviously, clearly Celtic Park is a backup generator or something. So like most of the lights sort of around the stadium kind of came back on. But yeah, it was a bit weird.
Not ideal. I remember a game. The only other power cut I can ever remember was a game against Livingston. I think it was before the game, 2005. I looked it up. And I remember in the lead up to the game there being a power cut. I think that was around Christmas time as well, and we went on and won that game. It was eventually delayed and played, and Nakamura scored a late goal. But pretty rare occurrence, but clearly didn't affect things. We got on and won the game. From the sounds of things, and as I say, I've not seen it, it sounded like a pretty comfortable victory. Was there a bit of a struggle in the first half an hour, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get onto this, I assume, but like, there's a bit of kind of, I hate to say this, but there's a narrative has built up after the game in terms of the coverage, in terms of some of the quotes that have come out. It was fairly run of the mill, I think. The first half an hour, I think there was definitely a tension at Celtic Park because of obviously what happened on Thursday. We got an absolute battering, and kind of everyone. I think there was definitely tension. I think everyone wanted a really quick start from Celtic. Everyone wanted, obviously, you want a goal in the first 5-10 minutes just to really kind of set a statement. But St Mirren turned up, and they're obviously they're not going to want that. So the first half hour or so, I think St Mirren were competitive. I mean, Celtic created good chances. There were a couple of really good chances in the first 10 minutes. But yeah, generally speaking, the first half was fairly even until we got that first goal, and then I think from there, kind of, Celtic took control. And then obviously second half was dominant really. I didn't feel as if there was any kind of significant threat from St Mirren going forward. Yeah, the likes of Luke McCowan made a real difference in the second half. I thought he was really excellent with some of his passing, some of his reading of the St Mirren midfield. He was finding spaces, and he was finding passes where I don't think other players were finding them. It was just really good tempo, really good control of the game, and we got the goals that the team deserved based on the performance. And yeah, I mean, barring a slightly tense first half an hour, I'd say, and not necessarily just because of what was on offer, but I think because of the context of this week. Yeah, I think it was the exact result that I think we needed. I think too much will be made of what followed, and obviously we'll kind of get into that. But I think in and of itself, it was the kind of game we needed, a statement win. Just going to get things back to their natural order, if you like. Beating teams around us, well, not around us, but beating teams in the top six, and putting a message out that Thursday was an aberration. We go back to winning games, and sending a message.
Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like a lot of games at Celtic Park, and that the team's kind of the team's probing and trying things. Maybe that final pass isn't quite coming off, and we don't quite get that early goal. But I think a lot of times we get goals quite late in the first half. I've noticed that recently, and obviously we get two before half time, and from that point it seemed like things were never really in doubt. 4 changes, so he brought in Trusty, Engels, McCowan and Ida. Out went Scales, Hatate, Bernardo and Kyogo. So how did those guys get on with it? You mentioned McCowan looked pretty good. I think I read somewhere that Ida was working quite hard today as well, and winning the ball back and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a running theme with I don't know, on your channel, on you've had some really, really interesting discussions about the strikers and the striking options this season, and it's been a strange sort of situation where our wingers, I mean, Kuhn and Maida's probably having his best season as a Celtic player, arguably. Nicholas Kuhn has just been a revelation, but we're not getting a lot of goals out of strikers. And I don't think that's to say that necessarily Kyogo or Ida have had bad seasons either. And I think today was one of those games where Ida was playing some really good stuff, but he just wasn't necessarily threatening the goal. Some of his link-up play was really good. He was dropping deep a lot of the time to just to kind of create problems and just to kind of just to unsettle the St Mirren defence a little bit. They were bringing back, they brought back Zach Hemmings on loan from Middlesbrough. So their defence was a little disrupted, even though he was their former goal. It's an interesting situation, but they weren't necessarily. Yeah. I mean, they were introducing some new things there. So Ido had the ability to disrupt them a bit, and he didn't necessarily look like he was going to score a hat load today, but he did enough to disrupt and to bring Kuhn and Maida into the game today. I thought he was decent. And you can have a discussion with someone much better than me about the overall impact of Vida this season and whether or not he's lived up to the price tag and all this kind of stuff. But in and of itself today, I thought he put a decent shift in. Talk about Trusty. I thought Trusty he came in and looked confident. I think it was the right decision.
Do you prefer the look of Trusty and Carter Vickers to Scales? I mean, I think Scales is still going to have a part to play. Just because he had a poor game on Thursday doesn't mean we're not going to see him. He's clearly he's trusted by the managers and is going to keep playing matches. But I do think Carter Vickers and Trusty is a partnership for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just think, I mean, Trusty's got that. He's got some really, before he came to Celtic, had really, really good experience, a decent CV, and he's immediately built up the understanding with Kevin Carter Vickers. He looks really composed. Obviously got on the score sheet today, which I think will help him to no end. But I think that too looked reliable. Weren't particularly tested today. I don't think, I think Europe's the real proving ground for that too, as a combination, as we've seen and as we'll continue to see. That's the real testing ground. I don't think you can necessarily make too many conclusions about who the best back two is based, no disrespect, but based on games against St Mirren. necessarily. But yeah, Trusty came in and was good. As we covered, Luke McCarron was good. And I think the balance in midfield was excellent. Although I will say, when Hatate came on, he's been the target of a lot of criticism this weekend, and at certain points this season. His inconsistent. I don't think anyone can argue he's been inconsistent at times, but he did come on and he sprayed a couple of this absolutely ludicrous passes that would have been. I mean, if they had been finished off, they would have been. I mean, we'd be talking about these assists for a long time, and there was some wild stuff. But the game management was good. I can't really argue too much with the team selection, to be honest. And it's one of these ones where the squad looks quite healthy, but you do look at the January transfer market and think, like, where can we prove? And again, I think that's probably a discussion we'll have later on. But like, it's again the kind of game we needed, and some players who maybe on the fringes came in and performed pretty admirably. And yeah, again, can't really complain too much.
Good. So we had Nicholas Kuhn, 2 more goals for him. I believe he has 16 now for the season. Certainly has a 9 in the league, so it must be 7 in other competition. I can't think of 7 other goals, but I think it was John actually on the Celtic Way saying that he has 16 for the season. So I won't disagree with John. So Kuhn kind of kicking on again. There's some interesting comments from Brendan Rodgers after the game. And obviously we're going to come on to this stuff, but on Nicholas Kuhn, and I think Brendan Rodgers was just genuinely kind of pretty angry, or certainly maybe not angry, but frustrated by certain things. And he was asked about Kuhn after the game, and he said Kuhn needs to toughen up a bit and get on with it. And this was in relation to the bang on the nose he had at Ibrox. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But another couple of goals for Kuhn. And we talk about him every single video, Euan, so we probably don't need to do that for this video. We had Austin Trusty, as you say, first goal for the club. A new chant. We've not had a new chant in a wee while, Euan, have we? And certainly getting Carter Vickers finally having a chance a good thing.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I mean we'll probably talk a bit more about chants, but there's it's nice, it's good. You got to keep the rotation fresh, and CCV.
You're a fan of American Boy? Is it Estelle?
Estelle.
It's kind of an obvious choice.
Well, yeah. I mean, what else could you pick? I feel like Real American by Rick Derringer's a bit kind of tainted now because of the Hulk Hogan Association. What else could you have? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. American Girl doesn't really work.
American Idiot.
Your words, not mine. I mean, we could, if we want to schedule this in, we could do a whole other episode about this. But I don't know what value that brings to your subscribers, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, can't really fault it. I think there's scope to do a whole. We could, Kanye West verse could be adapted into a whole thing. I think there's scope there.
Gavin and Stacey style.
Sure.
I think that scene. I love it. Anything else on the game, Euan? Any other points that you feel you want to make, or was it just a straightforward afternoon? A good reaction, I guess, to Ibrox.
Yeah, it was good. I think it was quite telling that a lot's been made of build-up play, and I mean, I assume we're going to talk about what Brendan Rodgers said in his press conference afterwards. A lot was kind of made of build-up play, but I think it's interesting that our goals kind of came from counter-attacks and from, there was a set piece where Austin Trusty scores from a corner. So yeah, we probably will get to what Brendan Rodgers said, but there was actually there was real incision today. Some really, really good stuff in the counter-attack, some really quick movements and passing. I think a lot of it's just the goals today I thought were instinctual. The pass that McCarron makes to Maida knows exactly what to do. Finds Kuhn in the box. And then the second goal is, again, it's quick build-up play. And it kind of feels that's been neglected a little bit. I would imagine that after Thursday, Brendan Rodgers made that a bit of an impetus, saying, take your opportunities in terms of, there's still that capability for really fast build up. And I think, we'll probably get onto the fans getting a wee bit restless about kind of the more sort of ponderous, slow kind of side-to-side build-up play that has been a feature of Brendan Rodgers' time at Celtic some of the time. It wouldn't be unfair to say, but there was real incision, there was real sharpness, and I think there's clearly been something of, if not an inquest, definitely some words were said after Thursday, and I think you can tell from the urgency that Celtic showed in the goals that were scored today. So positive stuff.
Okay, we will get on to that. Just first of all, other results. It was a full fixture card. So early kickoff, Hibernian 3, Rangers 3, a really kind of thrilling game at Easter Road. More drop points in the road for Rangers, which means that we moved further clear of them. We also had Aberdeen, who are now 10 games without a win, which is just ridiculous given the start to the season they made. They have totally gone. I think they're 5 defeats in a row now. Motherwell beat them 2-0. We had Hearts beating Dundee United 1-0 at Tannadice, a kind of late-ish James Penrice goal there. An away win for Ross County at Kilmarnock. Another late goal there, George Harman scoring, and St Johnstone 1, Dundee 3 was the other game. So that leaves the league table with Celtic 13 points clear. So looking very good. We're 19 ahead of third place Dundee United and fourth place Aberdeen. Have a game in hand in both of those teams. But obviously, as I say, the main bit is 13 points clear of Rangers. Some more goals have gone ahead of them as well. And I guess it does just show that Thursday was... well, it was a kind of one-off game in the sense that it wasn't massively important, I don't think, to what's actually happening in the league table. It's not as if Rangers are coming for us and we're in danger of being caught or anything like that. Like, I think clearly them, after that high of Thursday, not being able to beat Hibs, especially after being 2-0 and 3-2 up going into the last kind of 10 minutes, I think that was a bit of a shocker for them. But that's what they're going to do, and Celtic will be more consistent. So 13 points clear of Rangers, and we're all feeling pretty good about ourselves again. Well, I say all because Brendan Rodgers did have some interesting things to say after the game. The boss was clearly not happy with sections of the Celtic Park support for a few things. Now, first thing, on the Kieran Tierney song that I believe was sung near the end of the match, or even at the end of the match, he says, "There was a few things that I may have overheard at the end there. That's a total lack of respect. Of course there is. Greg Taylor, he's been absolutely amazing at this club. How does he feel? He nearly breaks his nose, bleeding for the club, for a cause. It's not very respectful. You sing for another player, no matter what Kieran's history is. I don't like that. There's lots of speculation, lots of names, but I wouldn't add anything to it." He was also critical of the support for some groans around the half-hour mark when the score was 0-0. Again, this is a longer quote, but I'm going to read it all out. "I have a big respect for this group of players, especially in a day like today, because when it was 0-0 for the first 20 minutes, we'd make a backward pass and the crowd would be onto the team. That cannot happen. One, if you know about football, and two, if you can understand that when teams come here, they're going to make it really difficult. You can't turn up every single week and be 3-0, 4-0 up in 20 minutes. Teams are well organised, teams are well set up, you have to work the game. So sometimes you have to play a backward pass to change the point of attack. We make a backward pass and then they get on to the players, and that's why I was proud of the players. I don't need the cheers when it's 3-0 and the support when it's 3-0 or 4-0 or 5-0. You only need to look at the facts and how this team plays to know they're an attacking team, a creative team that creates goals and scores goals. So when we decide to go back to change the point of attack, clap the players, don't panic." And that was my annoyance today. We need the support when it's 0-0. We want to attack. Look at our numbers, look at our stats. Trust the team, trust the management. Wow. Pretty kind of mega comments when you think about it. We've just won 3-0 to go 13 points clear at the top of the league. And fair to say, Brendan Rodgers is really not happy with sections of the Celtic support. I think he did point out that he wasn't talking about everyone. He's talking about sections of the Celtic support for a couple of things. let's start with the second stuff then.
Yeah.
What do you make of it? I remember him very early in his first spell at the club. I think it was a Champions League game. I want to say against Astana. And I remember him saying that, the crowd need to stick with the team when we're moving the ball back, because that's how the team works. Rather than give the ball away, his teams keep the ball and try and probe. And we know that. And sometimes it can be a little bit slow. But I guess he also has a point to an extent. What do you make of this?
Was that the Astana game? Was that when Moussa Dembele scored a penalty?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in, because that went 1-1, I think, in the second half, and I'm pretty sure there was a moment when the crowd are kind of a bit unhappy, and I remember him after the game saying, I would really, it wasn't as scathing as he was in these comments. Clearly, just arrived at the club, so probably couldn't get away with being as scathing. But he was basically saying, we have to kind of realise that that's how the team play. We move the ball back and be patient, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at that point that was maybe more of a rallying cry. Today, I think it's an interesting one. I mean, I think it's taken liberties a wee bit for a guy like Brendan Rodgers to. I mean, I know there's a lot of water under the bridge there, but to say trust in management is a wee bit rich. But what I think we need to talk about, I mean, in a normal game, if we'd won last week, and we were going into a normal run-of-the-mill league game against the Mirren, and it was the first half hour, and I sort of get what he means in some senses, because I have been, in my seat, Lisbon Lions Upper as covered. And I think we were 5-0 up against St Johnstone, and I heard a guy go absolutely tonto because we conceded a throw-in, and he said, "It's not good enough, Celtic." And then his son looked kind of shocked, and he just looked at his son and went, "Well, it's not." And that is something that stays with me. So I get that there is that, that can happen. But also, I know we're well ahead in the league, but we got absolutely battered on Thursday. It was embarrassing. It was a terrible, terrible game. And so when you have a pretty full Celtic Park today, tense off the back of that game, worried about, is this going to be a run of form that could, because it's happened in the past. We've had the bad result, whether it's in a derby or a bit of a shock result, and that's kind of taken momentum out of our league campaign. And you came to Celtic Park. A lot of people would have come to Celtic Park today worried, not necessarily because of the opposition, but just going like, okay, if the wheels come off a wee bit, as maybe overreacting a little bit, which is fair enough, because we're emotional people. We're football fans. We're emotional.
Yeah.
And so when you don't see that necessarily that urgency that we did show later on in the game, and we just talked about it there, when you maybe don't see that in the first half an hour, when you're just needing that goal just to, get that confidence boost early doors, and just to kind of get the taste out of your mouth from Thursday, and just kind of to move on, people are tense and still quite angry and disappointed. And so, yeah, I get it. Like, I get why people were seeing us passing back the way and thinking, oh, God, right, we need a goal. We just need a goal just to get, the mentality in this place, just improve the atmosphere, just to make things feel better. And I think I would have thought Brendan Rodgers would get that, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying it's a gigantic failing on his part. I'm not criticising the guy. Like, let's be absolutely clear about that. He's entitled to his opinion. He's a manager of Celtic. Like, he's allowed to say this. So I'm not criticising him, but I did think he would understand that. And I do find it quite strange that he would criticise the supporters, especially after what happened on Thursday. And I know you can talk about, are we overreacting to one result, but it's a derby game. People feel how they feel afterwards, and so I think going after the fans for kind of anything after that is a wee bit strange.
Yeah,
that's just how I feel about it anyway. I'm not like attacking the guy. I think the comments were just a bit ill-timed.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think a lot of people feel like you. I guess I see bits of that. I think I see his point of view probably a little bit more as well, and that. I guess from his point of view, like he's come in and over the last year has taken this team to heights we've not seen in a long time, in terms of like clearly domestically we have seen, because we've been winning that amount of trophies for a number of years, but even domestically only losing one game in the entirety of 2024 is something we were all raving about a week ago and talking about how amazing this team was. And then the Champions League stuff, we're really on course to qualify for the knockouts for the first time in over a decade, and he's given us some really amazing performances. and then we throw in a pretty hopeless performance at Ibrox, and it was a complete shocker. But, and I did say this on Friday's video, I did feel that as much as some people would say it had been coming, and maybe to an extent it had been, I did feel it was also a bit of a one-off in that Celtic were absolutely terrible, and it was like a kind of combination of factors in it, going to Ibrox and the atmosphere and the fact we were off it, and maybe the points gap at the top of the league meant that the players didn't quite have that same intensity that they normally would for a fixture like that. And I guess from his point of view, he hears all the plaudits when things are going well, but maybe when things just, you suffer literally one hiccup. And it was the same after the Dundee United draw. And I thought the Dundee United draw, I thought it was a ridiculous reaction from some people. And I'm not afraid to say that. Like, I thought after the run we'd been on, the fact that we dropped points at Tannadice with all those injuries we had, I thought a lot of people went over the top. I think the result at Ibrox clearly merited a lot more criticism. But I think as a support, we do expect a lot these days, and it probably comes from being a bit spoiled over the past decade, and you know how much we've won, and you just kind of expect everything to be kind of pretty serene going forward, and obviously, as Brendan Rodgers says, things become difficult. I'm not sure I would have aired them if I was him, but as much as he did seem kind of pretty irate, I would say, right from the start of the press conference. Even his first answer, you could tell he was kind of holding something back a little bit when you watch it back. As much as he's kind of that, I think it was also measured to an extent, and I think he knows what he's doing, and it's probably going to get the players on side a bit, and it's probably going to get the support kind of a bit more understanding as well. I think people will generally think a bit more about, you know, how they react to certain things. You know, what was it a time really to kind of get in the team's back? But I mean, you were there, Euan, so there's a fair chance that it wasn't as bad as maybe he's been made out. But it's going to be a divisive issue. I just think, generally speaking, things are pretty good, and I think we maybe need to look at the bigger picture occasionally rather than just focusing on game by game and getting so worked up. But as you say, it's an emotional game as well. Kieran Tierney stuff as well, because I thought that was kind of interesting as well. The fans singing the Kieran Tierney song, I don't have an issue with that at all. Don't have an issue with the fans singing about Kieran Tierney. He's a former player. He's a player we'd all, well, not all, but I think the vast majority would love to see back at the club. We feel he could take us to a new level. So I wouldn't have called out the fans for singing the Kieran Tierney song. Having said that, I do think Greg Taylor deserves more credit generally, because I think he's been a good servant for Celtic. He's obviously got his limitations, and I thought it was interesting Brendan Rodgers even brought up the Champions League stuff and kind of Greg Taylor, in a roundabout way, he said Greg Taylor isn't maybe good enough for the Champions League, but you could say that about 100 players in Celtic's recent past. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but I think Greg Taylor's been a good servant, and I do think he deserves more credit. Stevie. No, sorry. Just generally speaking from the Celtic support. Yeah. But also, I don't think the support deserve to be called out for singing about Kieran Tierney. And it's not going to matter, because you know the North Curve, the Green Brigade, are going to be singing that 10 times louder on Wednesday night, is it?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I think what you said about the initial comments about the support, about the crowd yesterday, multiple things can be true. I think we need to actually, nuance is possible. It's possible that, there's an element.
Nuance is not possible, Euan. You should know that by now. This is my mission. Talking about Celtic.
This is my mission statement, right? As an independent, I'm not aligned to any Celtic website or anything now, right? Nuance is possible. You can say Brendan Rodgers maybe went over the top, but had a point. But other things are true. And I think the same is the case with the KT stuff. And I'm not saying that to cop out of having a proper opinion. The support can sing what they like. We're very heavily linked to a very popular player coming back, and the fans sing his chant from 2019. Absolutely fine. But also, I did feel sorry for Greg Taylor. I did.
Did you? Because I don't I'm thinking. I guess that's probably, now I think about it, potentially, but that honestly wouldn't even really cross my mind. In that I don't think any fans are. Hamish. I don't think any fans are singing that thinking, right, we'll get this up Greg Taylor, as was maybe slightly been made out by the manager, but also I guess he's looking at his current players and maybe, you know, Greg Taylor would be thinking that. But I don't know, Greg Taylor doesn't really strike me as that kind of guy either. I mean, he'll know Kieran Tierney and that's fine. Also, I mean, Greg Taylor hasn't signed a new deal yet, so I mean, it's not as if, you know, Greg Taylor's definitely going to be here next season either when Tierney could potentially be coming in. It's just a little bit messy. Do you think is there any issue going forward here? Like, because the one thing going into all these big games, including the Champions League, you really don't want division. You want everyone to be together. Personally, I don't think there'll be a massive issue from this. I mean, it's well known the Green Brigade and Brendan Rodgers don't massively get on anyway, so there's not going to be any major new issue there. But I think we'll be all right going forward. But is there any worries about any division here?
I think what strikes at the core of the Greg Taylor, Kieran Tierney chatting stuff is that I think it speaks more to Brendan Rodgers' frustration about Greg Taylor not signing a new deal than anything else, really. I think maybe he feels undermined by the support in a sense, because he's trying to tell Greg Taylor to sign a new deal and the support are singing for another left back. I think he's maybe seen things that absolutely makes sense from his perspective, but when you're sitting in the stands thinking, oh, it'd be nice to have Kieran Tierney injury free back in our defence, like, again, nuance. But going forward, no, I mean, you could refer back to this in a month or so when everything has collapsed and things are terrible, but I don't think so. And the Champions League comment was strange because maybe it's a way of spurring Greg Taylor to stick around and put a massive performance in the Champions League. And you're right. I mean, Greg Taylor's he has a points in the Celtic career, has been an excellent player for us. I think it's worth mentioning, especially the second season under Ange when, God, everything was perfect. But especially that second season under Ange, Greg Taylor was outstanding. And it's not for nothing that, I mean, Alistair Johnson's maybe adapted quicker to Brendan Rodgers coming in and Ange leaving and having to adapt to that different kind of fullback role. Everyone was talking about how different the fullbacks were under Ange when there was a new thing. There's a new inverted kind of fullback role. Brendan Rodgers came in and changed that. Obviously, we saw the kind of growing pains of the first season, and maybe Greg Taylor's taking longer to adapt to that because he had to completely change his game, and he was fantastic when he changed his game, and he got a lot of absolutely correctly got a lot of credit for that. And maybe he's been slower to maybe adapt to what Brendan Rodgers wants from him. But he's still, I mean, yeah, he's made some high-profile mistakes. He's maybe not putting his best performances when the lights have shone the brightest, and he's maybe, well, there's no maybe about it. He's had some rough games on a big occasion, and it's certainly put him under an unfavourable light. I keep talking about light when there was a power cut today. I don't know what's going on there, but going forward, I don't know. We're not going to know until either Greg Taylor leaves or signs a new contract or Kieran Tierney comes in. There's nothing. There's too many variables to suggest whether or not this is going to have a long-term effect. But I think it did. If you're going to talk about long-term effect, I think Brendan Rodgers was kind of throwing the gauntlet for his current squad, saying, if you want to perform at Champions League level, then this is what I expect of you, because I've seen plenty of good players come in, not make their mark in the Champions League and leave. So maybe that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Hard to know.
Okay. Excellent. It's been a long video, Euan. I didn't expect for it to be this long, especially when I didn't actually get to see the game, but thankfully there was other things to chat about. It's been lovely to have you on, Euan. Really lovely to catch up with you.
And you, mate. And you. Thanks.
Excellent. Everyone, thank you for watching this. Much appreciated. And I always think once you get into the new week, the first full week after in the new year, you're kind of ready to refresh and go again. So we're back into the routine and the swing of things. Celtic are 13 points clear. Virtually everything is good.